Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
we all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We
will find
peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world heroes among us, and every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find
Rawr.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Every Thursday night on Angified.
Right here. That's where we find it.
And tonight we're actually covering like the first 3 pages of our intro.
Nice.
I just realized as I was watching it, I was like, damn.
That's where you got the idea.
We really do cover this stuff.
Absolutely. Got to get to it all.
Yeah, and it's a wide range. Tonight we got a little mishmash going. Next week we're going to be on Hallows Eve, and we're going to get into like some creepy stuff and things, for the season. Some of tonight is going to lead into some of that, not necessarily on the creepy side, but on the experimental side that leads to it.
Nice. Gotta love the creepy stuff.
And some of the other things that are getting creepy are like what's going on with AI. It's been a little while since we took a look at the current AI scene, and I had to include at least one thing about that because it's moving fast over there.
It is. It's important to document. Yeah.
Let's go to the cave and see what we've got.
Miss
I
Crystal.
can't see it. No, there we go. I can see it now.
Right there.
Yeah, to just catch up on like where we're at in the current AI, and this is not a shocker to me that like AI actors are here.
Oh yeah.
And who better to like tell us what's up with the Hollywood scene? Because that whole strike over the last couple of years, a lot of that was in preparation for this moment where, yes, they are starting to utilize AI actors in big roles in ways that gonna change some things.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, some people were worried about AI coming for their jobs, and that's one of those ones that AI can come after.
Yeah, and it's legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
She's going to address that. Our Miss Crystal from Top Music Attorney and Delgado Entertainment Law, and that's another reason why I chose this one. Last week, YouTube came up with this new feature where you can pair channels and videos, and this is the first video that I found that's actually utilizing that. So both of her channels, Top Music Attorney and Delgado Musical Law, are now tied to the video, which is awesome.
Nice. We're
gonna have to start utilizing that because we got a IT channel.
That's right, we do.
And we know how to use it.
Exactly.
And just to continue with last week's IT stuff, I wanted to discuss something that I have spent years on this discussion with clients and computer users and naming your files and directories the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we both have some stories on that one.
Yes, and I figured you can relate with
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
going to be discussing here.
Oh, yeah. Some best practices and some worst practices. I can
Yeah.
tell you about some both.
If you ever burn data to CDs back in the 90s, then
Mhm.
you began to understand like naming conventions. You can only have 127 characters. You can't have certain weird characters. Um, we don't deal with that anymore because we don't tend to burn to CDs that have that ISO standard.
Mhm.
But at the same time, if you have a network like I do, and especially if you have like a Mac over here and Windows over there, and you're trying to like get files or run them across the network, those operating systems don't play nice with their names.
No. And I mean, 128, that's an enormous file name compared to what we used to have. I mean, us old folks remember 8.3. I mean, 8.3, you can't do a lot with 8.3, but you can make a file system that you can find things where you only have 8 characters and then a period and then 3 more.
Well, thank God it was only 8+3 in the DOS days, because you had to type that shit for the most part, unless
Oh
you
yeah.
knew the secret with the right arrow, and boom, it'll type it for you. But
Mhm.
most people didn't know that, so they'll sit there and type 127 character names and realize, damn, I should really shorten like my name.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah, and there were, numerous, trouble tickets that we had over time of things that seemed like just a weird problem where something wouldn't work, but the problem ended up being that they're trying to use a file name that exceeded the maximum and they double click the file, it opens the application, but it doesn't bring up the data they want because it's too long, so it can't find it.
Yeah.
It's
So
one of those things.
we are going to look at how to do it properly.
Yes, because that's important.
Yes, and there's a little bit of music theory in the middle of all of this.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, Again, I'm wanting to get warmed up for the creepy
Mhm.
mood, and I think minor. I think
Mhm. Oh yeah.
minor scales. I think minor chords.
Mhm.
So, Write a Song, the channel that we've gone to on several theory nights, he discusses how I wish minor key chord progressions were explained to me as a
Nice.
musician. And
Mhm.
I feel the same. I was not explained minor scales and chord progressions properly in the early days. Took me 3 decades
Mhm.
before I came to appreciate the minor scale.
And the thing is, even knowing as much as we do now, anytime I watch videos like this, I'll probably pick up a couple of nuggets that I didn't necessarily remember or cover in theory, or have something else that just clicks into place from watching something like this. So I'm a big fan of, even if videos seem like it's all stuff that you've already covered, it might be covered in a different way, or just shed some light or allow a new insight to come through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like to see it from different perspectives
Yeah.
too. One of the cool thing with a lot of our channels is you will get like 3 different views on one particular approach. So
Mhm.
it it helps to understand how other musicians see the same thing.
Yeah. And one thing is, when we talk about the numbers, we talk about the going from the 1 to the 5, or a 1 4 5 progression. When we're talking about things like that with the minor progressions, that you could just think of it as you're starting on the 6, because the 6
Yeah,
is the minor relative to the 1. So
it's all relative.
yeah, so like a minor 1 4 5, you could just think of as a 6 2 3 in the parent major key. If you wanted to look at it as all white notes, for example, you could say an A minor, 1 4 5 would be a 6 2 3 in C major, that kind of thing.
And if you really want to get nuts, uh, let's get nuts.
Nice.
The case for experimental music. This is the kind of musical debate that you will find people on both sides of.
Hmm.
Some really want to like go with the philosophy that you can do anything in
Hmm.
music, and
Yeah.
if you're really good at it, every once in a while you get those composers and musicians who get away with that. And
Mhm.
experimental music is some of my favorite to appreciate. Not
Mhm.
necessarily what I'm going to listen to for 6 7 hours a day,
Yeah.
But it's the kind of music that when a composer really goes out of the box and almost seems to come up with something new out of those, 7 notes that we have,
Mhm.
there is a good argument for why you need some musicians to think this way.
Sure. And again, to find where that line is, at what point sound does become music, because there's stuff on the one side of that line and there's stuff on the other side of that line. But
It,
one thing that always comes to me with experimental music is things like early Pink Floyd and prepared piano is one of those that you hear the term where like you take an upright piano and they hammer nails into it, or do things to it so that when you hit the keys it sounds completely different than it would normally sound as a piano. It's been treated in a way where it's now a completely different instrument.
yeah, you see with the modern bands, the way they experiment tends to be that way. Where Queen made a whole album where they spent 3 months in a house and just like, let's throw everything in this room and start banging on it and hitting it and see what it sounds like. And
Mhm.
experimenting that way
Mhm.
is a great way to bring new sound to your music. And then
Mhm.
you've got the flip side, like a composer like Stravinsky utilized natural orchestral instruments, but in a very abstract, uh, super dissonant approach. Where at the time they were like, wait a minute, you're calling this music? A
Mhm.
lot of people didn't agree with it. The Rite of Spring caused
Mhm.
riots its opening night
Yeah.
because the people wanted their money back. They're like, this is supposed to be a ballet.
Mhm. Yeah.
This shit's crazy.
Yeah. Not everybody's going to be a critic, right?
Yeah, but history, proved him right.
Mhm.
He is become known as like one of the fathers of modern contemporary classical, experimental classical in the 20th century.
Mhm.
He kind of led the way for everything we saw that went into cinematics and other forms of modern classical music.
Yeah. Definitely a fan.
So it takes a mad doctor to
Mhm.
create the next evolution. And speaking of,
Ah,
your doctor wants you to play this bass, Glenn.
I like it. Yeah. It looks like a Strandberg, right?
I figured you would know
Mhm.
what's up with this bass because I looked at it and I was like, okay, I've seen the headless and
Mhm.
all that, but from
To
what
me,
I
the giveaway is
gather,
the bottom there where it's resting on his leg. You can see how it like would rest on this leg or it would rest on that way.
oh
Like
yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
yeah.
that's kind of the giveaway in the body shape there. I want to say Strandberg, but we'll see when we get into it.
Well, it looks ergonomic.
Exactly. And light. One thing with the missing headstock there is that's a good chunk of weight that doesn't have to be there.
True, true. And this one's coming from Base the World.
Nice.
We got this site back when we did our Base Night Part 2.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, and to
Hmm.
to finish things off, I like my MIDI toys, and I've
Oh
been
yeah.
looking at these different MIDI controllers, and up till now, the Presonus Surface controllers. That's my target.
Hmm.
Um, But this one started popping up in our channel, and it's not just this controller that caught my attention. It's the company behind it. The Drop. It's called the Drop. This particular
Hmm.
one, a new breed of MIDI controller. But I couldn't help but go check out
Hmm.
oxiinstruments.com because the controllers that I'm seeing here, these aren't your typical MIDI controllers.
No.
It in some cases, they're very sequencer driven. Like imagine having actual buttons for everything you normally would be clicking on a grid on a screen,
Right. Right.
but some of these controllers turn that into a physical thing. And what's really cool with the way they built this, they have multiple controllers. They're all integrated with each other. So like a Lay's chip, I'm probably not going to be able to eat just one of these,
Yep.
but I want them all for different
Hmm.
reasons,
Hmm.
not just for music making. I can see like some of my video editing and other things that I do,
Yep.
this kind of controller being super useful.
Yeah, we've talked about even just like using the mice that we use, the thumb trackball, using that as like a jog wheel kind of a thing. That's something that can be another use, and you can use other things for that as well. Things like the you remember the paddle controller for like Breakout on the Atari? Like
I wish
that
I
would
could
be
take my old Atari paddle
right.
and use it for video
It would be
editing.
perfect for that. It's a perfect jog wheel.
If someone can invent a converter for those old paddles to hook up to this machine,
That sounds like a perfect job for the Raspberry Pi. Or even the smaller version of the Pi where it's like a board on a chip for $5. You could just like take that, put some connectors on it, and you're good.
yeah. Well, what appealed to me on this particular controller, again, this to me is competing with the Presonus $800
Mhm.
8-channel
Sure.
control surfaces. Um, I like what they've got going on the left side of this.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see using that little wheel, the programmable buttons there, again, for
Mhm.
video editing as much as for music editing.
Oh yeah, I can
And
see that as
and,
well.
and the little 16 grid, or is it
20 looks like.
20? Not only is that useful for scene selection,
Mhm.
or if
Yeah.
you're doing grid-based beat making,
Mhm.
and turn this beat on, turn this beat off, you've got multiple controls in this thing that normally you would need multiple devices to be able to pull this off. Getting it all
Mhm.
into one nice package like this,
And as you
I have
said,
to I
mhm.
have to say, when I looked at the price, I was a little like, "Oh, I was hoping it's gonna be cheaper than the
Yeah,
Presonus,"
yeah.
but it's competitive.
Mhm. But as you said also, I mean, it's got the real faders, it's got the real knobs, it's got the real, buttons, like all of it seems like it looks like it would play and feel solid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
important too.
it does look like it's built well. All the ones that I'm seeing coming from them look like Mackie level
Yeah. Yeah.
tough.
Exactly. And that's saying
Uh,
something. Mm.
we are gonna defrag our brains, maha.
Yes, indeed. But
Well,
first,
we'll start with what's going on in the AI world.
mhm,
From one of the best legal resources to look at AI on the music side. She's
mhm,
looking at it on the Hollywood side in this particular case. And like I said, the cool thing with this one, it's my first time seeing this collaborators
mhm.
channel option in use, and
Okay.
I've got both the links in our description file. Everybody
Mhm.
should check out these channels. The top music attorney one is better for like keeping up with the trends of whatever's going on on any given day, especially in the AI world, music copyright and all of that.
Mhm.
The Delgado Entertainment Law channel is a much more useful resource when you're looking for specifics like those we looked at the band lab clause a couple of months ago, and
Right.
in 10 minutes she explains like everything that you're dealing with when you sign up for these musical services.
Mhm.
Very useful information for any musician out there that is signing up to these places.
Definitely.
And right now she's going to be looking at AI actors.
Mhm.
They're here. Um, some of the reason why these strikes were going on in the first place was for this kind of situation. And I'm curious to see how the legal side of this is going to justify the use of AI actors, which is
Yeah.
happening.
And again, some of it was probably the litigation was probably all started a long time ago before it was even as much of an issue as it is right now. But they were trying to get ahead of it, would be my guess, because they saw this coming. As soon as AI started coming around, as soon as some of the deep fakes started coming around, I think they saw the writing on the wall that this was coming and needed to be at least explored at this point.
Yeah, they definitely were proactively trying to avoid this situation, but it's kind of impossible to avoid.
Mhm.
Otherwise, the only solution would be no AI, and that's not happening. So,
Right. That genie's
uh,
already out of the bottle. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna have to see how a lawyer deals with this because I can see her being on the side of the actors on this, but at the same time, as a professional, realizing the legalities as the way they work at the moment, I don't think the movie studios are technically doing something wrong. So
That's the thing, is it's a matter of updating the framework to be relevant to the tools of today. So that's kind of where we're getting.
yeah, and that's kind of where she's fighting with the courts to get these laws straight, up to date. We're living in 20th century laws here, and we're in the 21st century now. So
Yeah.
I think
And nothing against any particular lawmaker, but lawmakers aren't necessarily equipped to deal with this either, because they're not dealing with this every day. So, if all of a sudden you tell them AI and actors and this and that, and they say, well, how is that a bad thing? How, who's losing money, this and that, and they don't even necessarily understand the problems at that point. So it's important for them to have consulting, to consult with people who have a lot of the industry experience.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm glad that some of the YouTubers like her, Beato, they've gone in front of Senate
Right.
and given some of their concerns so that these lawmakers understand it from the professional's perspective.
Exactly. And that's important.
Yes. We love you, Crystal.
Let's see what you got, Sadie.
There's a new actress that's becoming very popular named Tilly Norwood, and the thing is, she's all AI generated. Now, it's amazing because we're getting reports that apparently this AI avatar is getting scouted to get signed by top talent agencies. Cue the incredible backlash from Hollywood. Now, this was just announced last weekend at the Zurich Film Festival, and the creator, Elaine van der Velden, says Tilly is to be, quote, the next Scarlett Johansson or Natalie Portman. Now, I have questions. And really, let's put this in 3 categories. 1, is there an avalanche of lawsuits that are now going to come at this creator and, of course, the AI production company, Particle 6, as well as the spin-off AI studio that created Tilly? We'll come back to this. 2, are AI actors going to replace real human actors? And 3, how is the industry in general responding to Tilly? Now, I'll actually start with the industry piece. So this was the statement put out by SAG-AFTRA following the announcement of Tilly, which basically says, oh, hell no. Quote, to be clear, Tilly Norwood is not an actor. It's a character generated by a computer program that was trained on the work of countless professional performers without permission or compensation. We're going to come back to that as well. It has no life experience to draw from, no emotion. And from what we've seen, audiences aren't interested in watching computer-generated content untethered from the human experience. It doesn't solve any problem. It creates the problem of using stolen performances to put actors out of work, jeopardizing performer livelihoods, and devaluing human creativity. Now, as many of you know, my law office is involved in a number of AI lawsuits because a big part of this is not just the impact on the industry and the creators, right, of which are concerned they're going to get replaced, but it's specifically what was the AI trained on, because this incredible ability to show emotion, be expressive, and as the AI studio says, with Tilly, comes fully loaded with complete backstories, distinct voices, evolving narrative arcs, can engage in unscripted conversations, do monologues, and respond in real time to adapt to different audiences. And in fact, we saw some of this on Tilly's Instagram, right? So we saw things like she's doing screen tests, action sequences, she's doing parodies. So rewind. The creator, Elaine is actually not only a Dutch actress, a producer. As she puts it, she's trying to do something innovative. This is not about replacing human actors. It's about doing something that is tantamount to like animation or CGI. Now, she put out an official statement. We're going to get to that. But on whether studios are going to go for this. Here are the pros, right? You get to hire Tilly, who's going to work 24/7 and not complain. And quite frankly, this seems to be the thing that no one's really saying, that studios, record labels, as it relates to musicians and music creators, right? The corporations that are running the entertainment industry kind of just don't want to deal with you. So instead of having to deal with you, they're just going to deal with these tech companies and get AI avatars that can work 24/7. Now, if you guys remember with SAG-AFTRA, this was in 2023, if I remember correctly, and there was a lot of outrage and asking for better protections for performers' likeness, right? Their voices, their faces so that there can't just go and be AI replications of actors without their permissions. Now, just as a general rule, regardless of where you are in the entertainment industry, there has to be language in all of your contracts specifying how AI can be used. Is it okay for them to not only create AI versions of you, because you know what, they don't really want to do the reshoot. It's so much easier if your arm just kind of went weird and you hit the mic for them just to do an AI version than to fly you back out and just to get those 5 seconds. And there's a lot of implications for your guys' wills, your estates, right? What happens when you become the star of the TV show, of the movie? And more importantly, what do you want to have happen upon your demise? What do you want to have happen with your publicity? Do you want studios being able to make new movies using your likeness? Now, I do think there's a ton of curiosity on this, which ultimately is going to just make it more likely that Tilly does go and get a big deal, because now there's just, we want to see what happens. And when she actually is appearing in some movie or TV show, we're all going to go watch it so we can see what's going on. But it doesn't mean that this kind of thing is going to stick. And we saw this happen with the AI music artist, Zania Monet, right? So she's the avatar and the AI music, and you know, she just got a quick $3 million deal, which we speculated was because it seemed like the music was resonating, it was connecting. So in other words, it's able to be monetized. If something can be monetized, guess who pops in? Any corporation that's looking to exploit something that makes people feel something. Now, let me put it out there just for the sake of argument. Well, what about times we've had, you know, cartoons put into movies? Roger Rabbit. Is this really any different? Does it matter that in this case, Tilly is being represented as human? And is that what is rubbing people the wrong way? What if it was clearly a monster? What if it was clearly something else? And then how is it going to work? Well, I can answer that. And how this all works is that ultimately the prompter, right? The person, in this case, Elaine, and her AI company, who is responsible, who has the exclusive rights to this AI personality, they're the ones who are going to do the contract. They're the ones that are going to negotiate for the rights and the royalties. But guys, there's this huge thing that a lot of people are not talking about, which is the wrinkle with copyright. So meaning if something is fully AI generated, you cannot get copyright registration. And that is one of the most valuable aspects of intellectual property, which is a key difference here from, let's say, the CGI character, which is not the result of prompts. It is not the result of a machine making it. It's the result of a human using a tool. But that's also why people get confused. And then people are like, well, what about credit? How do we credit the AI character? Well, it's like anything else that we negotiate. How do you want to be credited? Where should it appear? I mean, it just gets negotiated in the contract phase of this. But I do wonder about just disclosing to viewers, because here's what I know. I know that people don't like being lied to. And at least for now, people are not used to AI stuff. They're not used to AI music. They're not used to AI actors, especially if it's being presented that this is a real human. And this was part of the problem when we had all of these AI bands pop up onto Spotify and they were pretending to be real people. They're like, hey, come see our band, buy our merch. Well, actually, there are legal theories to protect consumers. Consumer confusion is a legal basis to sue someone, to sue a company. But as a real law firm, we've done this for over 11 years. And what I can say the last couple of years is this stuff has been kind of come up more and more, is that we are seeing that studios don't want to touch it because of the lawsuit piece. They don't want AI stuff because they go, I don't know what you trained on. And if Tilly was trained on apparently 10 different tools, there's a whole lot of reason to be concerned if you are the studio that's going to take on that liability to say, oh, we're going to put Tilly in our TV show. So in the, you know, is Tilly just a gimmick, right? We're all just real curious, maybe to a degree, but I do believe that this is a test. And I do know that media giants, right, like Disney, Universal, they're all suing Midjourney. And they're saying, you took our characters and you're spitting them out. And when it comes to copyright infringement, these are not small lawsuits. These lawsuits are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And with the Anthropic settlement, right, for book authors, the settlement was for $1.5 billion. So the argument is there's a ton of money to be made if you're an AI company and it just is advantageous for you to move quickly, scrape from wherever you can get stuff from to train your AI, pump out what we'll call a new product, which is going to be your AI product, start trying to monetize it, and hopefully you'll make more money than the lawsuits you're going to have to pay out for. But I understand that the incredible fear around this is that really this is going to replace jobs. And I do think that is a real risk here because it's really if it becomes normalized. For example, there are movies where the whole thing is based on us seeing the actor as young. So we see the kind of CGI and the special effects for the majority of the movie, but we as the audience know what's going on, okay? We understand that that is not the actor as of today. So in that instance, the trust isn't broken. And so that's what I'm saying from the standpoint of whether this is a smart business move. Now, I promised that we would look at what did Elaine have to say. She put up a post on Instagram. To those who have expressed anger over the creation of my AI character, Tilly Norwood, she is not a replacement for a human being, but a creative work, a piece of art. Like many forms of art before her, she sparks conversation, and that in itself shows the power of creativity. I see AI not as a replacement for people, but as a new tool, a new paintbrush, just as animation, puppetry, or CGI opens fresh possibilities without taking away from live acting. AI offers another way to imagine and build stories. I'm an actor myself, and nothing, certainly not an AI character, can take away from the craft or joy of human performance. I think in the context of the discussion over AI, it's very important to distinguish and define what we're talking about. If it's AI in like, we can use AI to help as a search tool, to help you draft emails, to use it in your day-to-day life, that's one thing. Another thing might be generative AI, where there has been lawful licensing, lawful purchasing of the data set of which the AI trained on. And then lastly, there's AI, and specifically AI companies, that have unlawfully gone and scraped on the internet, on these different platforms. And it's my hope that within that framework, we can have a more meaningful conversation, that it's not necessarily you're anti-AI or you're pro-AI. There's a lot of room in between. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm Miss Crystal, and I'll see you on the next one.
So much food for thought.
Right.
I feel like I just got a meal there of legal advice. The first thing that struck me, her observation about the 1.5 billion, the approach that they're taking here, it's a lot like what you see in the like pharmaceutical side of markets, where if the lawsuits and what they end up spending on settlements like that is less than the value of what they think they can make from that technology, 1.5 billion sounds actually kind of small when we're talking like virtual actors.
Yeah. And it's also not a guarantee. You know, it's 1.5 billion is a swing, you know, swinging for the big shot. But, you know, at the same time, it's important to understand all of the aspects of this. And again, there are the people who are afraid that the actors are all going to get put out of work by the AI, and there's the other side. And it's important to just, you know, understand where everybody's mind is as far as all that goes. You know, we need to be respectful and helpful to the people who think they're going to be replaced by the AI, and also, you know, help them understand that it's just not coming for them. It's not, you know, it's not Armageddon coming at them, you know?
Yeah, and I think Crystal understands that. She sees it from the professional's perspective. And that's why she's got the concerns that she has. It's interesting to hear from the virtual actresses that there's a human behind this technology, and the perspective there is that this is like a work of art. It is a new form of digital art, so to speak. But when you start talking about like giving it personalities and backstories, and like Crystal mentioned, how is this thing been scraped and programmed to be the character that they're playing, and what rights do the studios have to the image of this character? If this girl sells the technology to the studio and the studio decides to do something seedy with this character, and the original programmer's like, well, you know, I didn't really program her or design her for this kind of content, where's that going to fall legally?
Yeah, because again, who is harmed by that as far as from the legal standpoint? You know, who would be the one that would have standing to you know, make a lawsuit in that respect? I was reminded of the. Do you remember the video game The Last of Us, or the movie The Last of Us? Because when the video game first came out, the likeness of the character, the girl, there's a human actress who looks exactly like that character, but she didn't give her permission for the likeness. So I think that's kind of where all of this, you know, not where it all started, but kind of the beginnings of this type of lawsuit.
And you know, this actually goes back even longer than AI, because Bruce Willis got modeled, a 3D model, way back when he did the movie Red, and They've done that for several big actors where like they've modeled them. They can basically reproduce that actor virtually, and I think back then the actors and actresses that were getting modeled like this, they were very specific about what you're going to be allowed to do with this. Halle Berry was another one that was very specific about like use of my model. Like I don't want to go off on some seedy site, and which now they call deep fakes, you know. So it's going to be a slippery slope the next couple of years as they establish this technology's here. Of course, the studios are going to do it. Like to her point, the amount of money that they save by not having to deal with the human, and if we do have to shoot for 20 hours, the average star is not going to do that without getting extra money. And of course, the studios are going to use this technology just like the music studios will.
The other question comes down to, is it an adequate replacement? Or like, is it apples to apples? You know, because if it is just a matter of if it is good enough, is what I'm saying. Like if the AI result of the video is indistinguishable from a person making those actions, because to me there's still those tells. You know, the AI, it takes a close eye, but you can see certain things that, you know, certain movements don't happen quite right, reactions to gravity aren't quite right. Like there's little things here and there that can tip you off to something being AI, you know, beyond the whole crazy fingers thing that used to always happen, you know, when generative AI was first starting out.
And I like that she compared it to the other situations we've seen over the last couple months, that fake band and you know, that situation. That was where you had people trying to represent themselves as humans, whereas here it is more like the animation side of Hollywood, where like we're not trying to represent anything. I'm sure in the credits they will be very transparent about what they're doing. But at the same time, I see it kind of like, you remember when the food industry started insisting we got to put everything, all the ingredients and everything needs to go on there to inform the consumer about what they're buying and consuming. Digital media, we're about to see the same kind of thing in the future where you're going to see an ingredients list to your album or your movie, and it's going to say this contains this technology just
in order
because
to cover it.
there's people insisting they want to know if they're consuming something that they might not want to.
Well, that was the other thing, is those bands that were, you know, pretending to be real, saying, come buy our merch, come see us, and shows that don't exist and things like that. If they hadn't tried to convince anyone that they were real, if they had just said, hey, this is an AI generated band, this is AI generated music, that would have been fine, right? Because that's not the same as, you know, trying to represent themselves as human. If they were fully disclosing what it was created by, as you're saying, then people can choose to say, oh, I don't want AI content, and they can choose not to check it out.
It wouldn't have caused the uproar that it did if they had been transparent right from the get-go. It would have caused some uproar because right now they're ready to argue about anything to do with AI. If they had just said, hey, this is an AI band, there's plenty of YouTube channels out there doing that. Nobody's screaming for those channels to get taken down. They're just fantasy AI channels. What
And if
would
you don't want to
Metallica
check it out,
sound
then don't.
like? Yeah, what would Metallica sound like if they were in the 50s? That kind of.
When I saw was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, if they were a reggae band, I was like, oh, I gotta check this out later.
You mean they weren't sometimes?
No, you know, sometimes, but you know, it was just the album art. Also, it's like, you know, the Chili Peppers, but in a whole, you know, reggae setup or whatever. It's one of those things where, you know, AI image generation for the art, AI music generation, but they take you know, actual music and an actual style and do a mashup. It is generative content. It is something new. It is transformative. So I can see that being something that would pass muster for that sort of thing. But again, it comes down to whether it had permission for the training for the data.
Yeah, and it gets back to like the engine and are they being ethical in what they're doing? Because I think how people are using it, the ethics are pretty straightforward, but how this data has been scraped and assembled to build these little brains, a lot of these companies have to answer for that.
Yep. Well,
And
check back in and check it out.
she's the one who's going to get answers if anybody is. So
Mm-hmm.
at Top Music Attorney, that's
Mm-hmm.
you can find her on that channel, and you can find her at Delgado Entertainment Law. Both channels excellent resources. The Entertainment Law channel is a great one to know your industry, what you're dealing with, whether you're talking Spotify or BandLab, or if you get caught up in AI lawsuits, this is where you're going to find the information.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank
And
you.
when we are searching for stuff, especially files, and why you can't find sometimes what you're looking for, sometimes it's because of the approach you take, how you name your files, how you organize your work. And I'm talking more about the work files. All the other stuff that we assemble, and music and movies and all those things, that's a different necessity. But when it comes to your actual work, your work files, not only should you name properly, you should identify if you're doing revisions with the music now, and especially getting used to BandLab and like dealing with 10 revisions to one song. Um, you got to organize these things on your hard drive. Otherwise, you never know what the hell you're loading.
Yeah. Well, it is also good that things like BandLab do all that automatic revision saving for you, where you want to go back 5 revisions, you just write down 5 down the line, boom, then
Yeah,
you got it.
yeah, but I like to take my projects and put them on my own hard drives
Oh yeah.
for long-term storage. And how they get organized: folder for the projects, then subfolders for each project, and the stuff that goes with it. Uh, a lot of the source files, when you're talking music or video editing, it's not one file, it's a whole bunch of different media clips that get put together, and you don't want them scattered all over your hard drive. When you go to open this file and it's like, I need a file from over there, I need a file from over here. um, that's a recipe for losing files.
Yep. And that's why having plenty of space is important, and also why having a working directory where if you're going to be, if the file is going to be used for this project, it should be somewhere in this working folder for this project. Even if it's another copy of the file, I'd rather have a duplicate of it here and know that I have it with the project, and not have to worry about, oh, I deleted it with something else over there and now this project doesn't work. That whole kind of thing.
So I think what we're going to get drilled here is be organized more so than what you name things. Start with organization, and the naming gets easy afterwards.
Yeah, and one example was always Live Fish, Live Grateful Dead. There's tons of shows, and it's all the same song names. So, like, if you were to look for duplicate files, you'll find thousands of duplicate files because they're all the same song names. But the idea is there's a date, and it's in there, and there's some, not like an airport code, 3-letter or whatever, but there's some kind of identifier as to where the show is, and whether this is a first set thing or a second set thing or a third set thing. Like, all these things are built into the file name, so that when you just look at the file name, you can now read it and you can understand exactly what that file is.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Dead there. Back at the end of the 90s, when we were ripping like everything and digitizing like all the CDs and tapes, I had a friend who was a big Deadhead collector. He was one of the traders. He had every bootleg of everything.
Nice.
And he had converted them all to MP3s, and he was using he had just gotten one of those the what is it, the iPods, that had just come out, and he's connected to his Apple account, and it synchronizes this massive library of Dead songs. And like you said, there's like
Remove
50
duplicates.
versions of, and that's what it tried to do. And he came to me because he's like, dude, half my library just disappeared, and I don't know why. And
I know why.
I was like, please tell me you didn't have this turned on in your iMac or your iPad pod library. Thank God he still kept the tapes.
That's a lot of work to redo, though.
Yeah. He actually converted analog to digital. It was massive.
Mhm. Yeah, that is an undertaking for sure.
So this one's a freshie channel. We get to do some IT here. It's at Skill Foundry IO, and he gets to explain what I have spent like 35, 40 years in IT trying to explain.
And in a lot of cases with us, it's just good habits that we developed over time out of necessity based on the limitations of the file systems in the old days.
Yeah, but we were kind of forced to name things properly because DOS and early Windows, you didn't have the flexibility you have now.
Not a bit.
Let's get these tips.
Right.
These are the top 5 mistakes beginners make when naming their files and directories. Now, when I start teaching beginners, one of the first bad habits I need to break is how they name those files and directories. Operating systems are designed to be friendly to regular users, but some of the things these systems allow, they cause real problems when applied to professional IT work. So let's establish some good habits from day 1, and you'll thank me later. Now, rule 1. No spaces. Spaces in file and directory names might read nicer for regular users, but they can cause some serious problems. In particular, when we work with command line or terminal commands, spaces have meaning. These tools often assume that a space means moving on to another part of the command, not part of the same file name. So when we work with files and directories with spaces in the name, we have to add additional characters, which we call escape characters, or we have to wrap them in quotation marks or other symbols. Another example is web development. Spaces are not valid in URLs, and they must be replaced by %20 characters. And at best, dealing with spaces in file and directory names is annoying. And at worst, they break your commands and your code. So when you're naming files and directories that have multiple words, professionals usually use one of these options. Now, the first is underscores. Underscores are probably the most common. For example, myprojectfile.py. Next, we have hyphens. Hyphens are a really popular choice in web files, though some tools and programming languages will treat hyphens as subtraction operators. But here you go, myprojectfile.py. And then we have camel case. In some programming languages, there is no separator between words. That's what they prefer. So what they do is the first character is lowercase, and then each additional word uses a capital letter. So here's myprojectfile.py and camel case. And then we have Pascal case. And sometimes this is called proper case or upper camel case, but basically each word starts with a capital letter, including the first character. So here's myprojectfile.py in proper case. And I don't know how much time I've lost in my career removing spaces and special characters from files that non-technical users send me, but if I had $1 for each time, I'd be a very rich man. Now, rule 2, avoid special characters. That includes spaces. But in general, your letters A to Z and numbers 0 to 9 and the underscore are the safest characters. Hyphens, as I mentioned, are usually safe, but avoid special characters like exclamation points, $signs, and things like that. They are risky to use. Depending on the tools and software you're using, those special characters may cause problems. So here's some bad examples, and here's some better examples. Now, in general, I avoid special characters at all costs, except in the rare cases where an application specifically requires them. It's not very common, but it does happen. Now, the dot character is a special case because it is used for hidden files and extensions. Obviously, we can use that in file and directory names for those purposes, but otherwise you should avoid using it. Now, rule 3 is to be descriptively concise. There is an art to naming things. It's actually one of the more sneakily difficult things about being a technology professional. We want to pick names that are descriptive enough to be clear to others, but not so long that they're a pain to type. So here's some bad examples of file names, and here's some good examples of file names. And you can see the difference. And if you do this well, your future self and your coworkers will thank you for clear, descriptive names that explain what the file or directory is for. Now, Rule 4 is case sensitivity. And this is one thing beginners learn quickly when they're stepping into professional tech. Letter casing often matters. Capital H hello is not the same as lowercase hello, but sometimes it is. It depends on the software and the tool that you're using. And if you want to save yourself some pain and frustration, I suggest just always assuming that letter casing matters. But when in doubt, you should use lowercase characters. It's by far the most common convention, especially when you're working with servers. And now we have Rule 5, dates and sorting. Sometimes it makes sense to put a date as part of the file or directory name, like a log file that contains information about a program that's running on a specific date, or a daily data dump of reporting information. It makes life so much easier if the file name can be easily sorted by the date that it references. But because of how numeric and alphabetic sorting work, you should always use the year, month, day format for dates in file and directory names. For example, these files will not be sorted chronologically. And the reason for this is that when you're sorting, each character is compared from left to right. The 2 in 12 comes after the underscore character when sorting. So the 2024 report would show up after the others if we're sorting it in ascending order, which is incorrect. Instead, if we name the files using the year, month, day, including leading zeros like this, now the files will sort correctly in ascending order. The names will be consistent, they'll always be the same length, and each character can be compared properly. That is how the sorting is going to work. So generally, the international standard date format of that YYY-MM-DD, that is the best format. So if you were born and raised in the United States, sorry, but you're gonna have to change the way you write dates. And now here's your bonus rule. Be consistent. Once you decide on a naming pattern in a project, stick with it. In professional software development, teams often have style guides that provide specific instructions for how you should name and organize your project files and directories. And if you fail to follow those guides and you're inconsistent, you're going to really annoy your peers. So if you learn to apply these rules from the very beginning, you are going to have a much easier time getting started in learning IT skills. And to be honest, it'd be a better technical world if even non-professionals followed these rules too. Happy coding.
Yep.
Oh, a man after my own naming convention heart.
Yes, indeed. As soon as you see that year, month, day, I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. That's the whole Grateful Dead thing I was talking about there. Yep.
I wish that like every client I ever dealt with over the last 40 years, I had that video to like get them going on a computer. And granted, everything he's talking about here is more for programmers. If you're web developing, case sensitivity super important if you're dealing with Unix servers. Case sensitivity matters on web servers that are built on Unix and Linux, and this is where like the different operating systems we take for granted that like we're used to what we're dealing with, what we sit down to. But when the internet came along, now our naming conventions and the files that we're sending off to here and getting from there to here, getting things to play nice with different operating systems that are serving the data, is why you need to have these naming conventions.
I've just always assumed that lowercase is best and never use uppercase unless there's a distinct reason to, and descriptively concise. Loved rule number 3. That
And
was something that it is an art, and that's one of those things that the people who do, have that ability to descriptively be descriptively concise when they're trying to name things and make folders, it makes such a difference, and you can appreciate it when you see somebody else who also does.
yeah, most people will probably ignore that space rule. But again, if you're a programmer, you know when you can and when you can't.
Mhm,
Can't be using spaces in web URLs and things like that.
mhm,
Most people will ignore that space thing if they're just dealing with their files locally and on their operating system. Space isn't a big deal storing on my own hard drive. And it's kind of hard to get rid of spaces if you're dealing with descriptive file names that is a sentence. like
At the same time, when the marketing department starts putting little heart emojis and bullet points in file names on the servers, no, I'm sorry.
I know that's where I would draw the line too. Like, no, you
Well,
can't use these special
yeah,
characters
well,
in your
they
file names.
did, and then they open tickets like, "Why can't I open my file? Fix your server." And I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with my server. Here, I'm gonna change your file name to this. Now it works fine. We didn't do anything else. We didn't change anything in your file. All we did is take the invalid characters out, and now it's beautiful."
Yeah, and I loved his bonus tip.
Mhm.
Consistency. Once you start to do this,
Oh yeah.
um, it is super important to be consistent there. Otherwise, you're going to end up with half your hard drive organized one way, the other half organized a different way.
Mhm.
You got to be consistent in your convention. If you are doing the date thing, he's right. Like the American approach there
Mhm.
never worked.
I always like the date 4, 4 for the month, or 4 for the year, 2 for the month, 2 for the day with the zeros every time.
And I really prefer not to have the date be part of the file name. So, a better convention is you want to know what date the file was created
Mhm.
or the date it was changed. All that is meta tags,
Yep.
data, and better to sort that way. As far as the name goes, if you are going to incorporate the date, you do need to do it after the name if you want alphabetical sorting.
Mhm.
And if you wanted to actually sort by the date and you name it that way, it's not going to work the same in every operating system. Unfortunately, with Windows 11 now, this sorting that they turn on by default in the Windows Explorer, I don't want sorting when I go to my file explorer turned on. I like the old school alphabetical, like
Mhm.
sort alphabetically. And unless I go change it, always be that way.
Yep.
Unfortunately, now, depending on what kind of folder you go into, oh, this folder's full of music. We're going to sort non alphabetically. Why Microsoft thinks that they can just change that stuff under the hood and not piss people off, that came with Windows 11. Because once I got this laptop and I started trying to go to my libraries and like, why the hell am I not seeing things in alphabetical order anymore?
Mhm.
And I
Now there
know
are
I didn't turn that on.
well, there are assumptions that it makes about you wanting to see those things, but that is also an option that is turning on or off, where it basically will say, treat all folders, assume what is in there based on what you think it is, whether it's music, whether it's video, whether it's this, whether it's that. But when you turn that off and you just tell it, assume everything is just files, then everything, and then like you were saying, details, and that'll get you your created, it'll get you your modified, it'll get you your, put it by date, put it by name, whatever you want.
Yeah, in the old days, I turned off that feature at the file explorer level
Mhm.
with
Yep.
one setting. I reinstall Windows. One of the first things I would do is set up my file explorer options.
Mhm.
Boom,
Yeah.
they're like that. They're good for the life of that Windows.
Right.
Now it's like per folder. Like you can literally, and it by default, it's got custom settings for every folder. And unless you tell it to do the same thing for every folder under it,
Mhm.
it's a lot more work than it needs to be.
Yeah, and again, that was an important point though about everything that's under it, because if you are making a whole directory of Grateful Dead music, for example, you're making the parent folder and you're saying this is music, and now it knows everything under there. It's going to use that same structure. So from that standpoint, it makes sense. But yes, when you're going into just make something new somewhere else, you want it to be the default, which I would also, which would be details, and go from there.
Yeah, well, if you name things properly,
Yes.
your operating system won't confuse you.
And you'll be able to find things, even just go to the search and you can kind of take a guess at what the file name would be, and you'd probably get to the right area.
Yes, that was some great tips at Skill Foundry IO.
Mhm.
Explaining it. Great freshy channel.
Yeah, always good.
Yeah. And now we're going to shift a little towards the music theory side. I want to understand the minor scale and chords. I feel like I do, but at the same time, every time I think I know minor, somebody shows me that I don't. And like,
Hmm.
oh, you can be happy in minor. No
Sure.
way.
Oh yeah. You can be happy in minor, you can be sad in major. That's one of my favorite things to do with cousin Jeff also, is to, there's the Hungarian reggae experiment we talked about, where I can just, throw a style and a scale at him and just, bam, it magically happens. Same thing comes when you try to go give me something that's a happy song that's in, B flat minor, and give me a sad song in G major or D major, typically very happy keys, and he can do
Uh,
it because it's all
Jeff's
about what you're hanging
Jeff's
on.
the one to test on those things.
Oh yeah.
And we will have another night where we go into where does emotion come from, because
Hmm.
that's kind of what was leading me with this one when I was looking. Um, what makes something sound happy or sad or scary? Something that we'll be looking at more next week. The qualities that create these emotions. The best one I can think of that we ever saw, Nari Soul.
Yeah.
She explained it in a very music arrangement approach, and
Mhm. And I think Jake also did a good job with when he was going through the modes and talking about, like the dad rock and the
oh yeah,
Dorian, and going
yeah.
through each of the modes and kind of giving the feel, or, what you can kind of use that mode to try to drive towards. Like Phrygian is going to give you that metal sound, or that, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is the scale that brings in the sad or creepy.
Absolutely.
So this one's coming from at Write a Song,
Mhm.
channel we've gone to on some of our songwriting nights, music making theory. This tonight, it's going to be some theory,
Mhm.
and it's how he wishes minor key chord progressions were explained to him as a new musician. Hey, I'm going to start playing an instrument, and the music teacher explains that these are the minor chords. I'm trying to think of how my teacher explained it to me, and it never clicked for me in the early days of my theory. It
Mhm.
took decades for me to appreciate minor. Major was a little easier to grasp. It's what you dive into first, but minor is where you really start to find your emotions sometimes.
One thing that I always found was kind of neat, if you look at the root and the five, right? If you go put a third in the middle, if it's going to be a major third, then you go a major third first, and then a minor third gets you to that fifth. If you want to do a minor third first, you do a minor third first, and then a major third gets you to the fifth. So it's still the same root and five, but you get the major and you get the minor. But it's just a matter of switching which one is first. It's like a major third and then a minor third, or a minor third and then a major third to get.
Man, I wish you didn't miss that parallel
Mhm.
progression that we looked at last week
Borrowing from
when
C
you
minor instead of C major. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and doing a C major chord and then a C minor chord and
Hmm.
turning it into an actual riff approach
Hmm.
does create that kind of it's
Movement.
like this shouldn't work, but it does.
And that's also where you get the sus chords, where you can do the sus2 and the sus4. And that's where you start feeling that kind of a thing, because, and you hear that in all kinds of stuff once you hear it.
That's what dreams were made for. Van Halen. Dun 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 dun.
something like that.
That's what Eddie was doing.
Yeah, sus2 and sus4, and that's from a major in that case.
All right, well, let's see what Write a Song says about approaching the minor chord for a new musician.
Minor keys are a popular choice for songwriters, and it's easy to see why. Whether writing a heartfelt breakup song or a dark metal song, the obvious choice is the minor key. But minor keys aren't just a one-trick pony. They can also offer an array of unexpected brightness. This makes them a really versatile key for crafting songs with. At this point, it's worth noting that there are actually 3 minor scales, and when people say minor, they're usually referring to just one of these, the natural minor scale. The notes from this scale are then used to create the chords in the minor key. I'll link a video at the end of this one if you want to learn more about this process. You will commonly see minor key chords written out in Roman numerals. These are used to show you the function of each chord in the key. That means how it works and how other chords interact with it to create different sounds for your progressions. The Roman numerals are universal. They are not tied to any particular minor key and can be applied to the key of your choice. Here are the 7 chords you find in minor keys. Uppercase Roman numerals represent major chords, lowercase are for minor chords, and the diminished chord is a lowercase with a small circle or degree symbol next to it. If we take the C minor key, which I'll use for examples later, then the following chords are used for each of the numerals. 1 is C minor, 2 is D diminished, flat 3 is E flat major, 4 is F minor, 5 is G minor, flat 6 is A flat major, and flat 7 is B flat major. These are known as the diatonic chords of the key of C minor. Like a game of poker, you can play these chords in different ways to create progressions. Most of these are straightforward, what you see is what you get. But the beauty of minor keys, there are also some bluffs that you can try out. So let's look at the ways we can play the game of minor keys. The simplest idea is just to play some combination of the 1, flat 6 and flat 7 chords. These all work well together and are used widely in popular music. The blend of the minor tonic with the 2 major chords gives an element of brightness, but there's definitely a feeling that we aren't in a major key here. Here's a few different arrangements in the key of C minor. You can take this idea further and add the flat 3 chord to the mix. This means you are using 3 major chords, with the single minor chord being the 1 tonic. This gets us about as far away as possible from the idea of the minor sound. It is undoubtedly positive, but has an underlying tension or menace that keeps it interesting. For this reason, you'll find the following 1, flat 6, flat 3, flat 7 progression all over popular music in many different genres. A word of caution with the flat 3 chord. If you hang out on the flat 3 for too long, it can start to draw the ear towards it. Without reinforcing the minor 1 chord as the tonic, the flat 3 takes over and establishes itself as the new major tonic. This is due to something called relativity. This is a great starting point, but what if you want to start writing some more varied minor key progressions? Well, the simplest way to open up chord possibilities is to use a 4-chord loop formula. Chord loops, or turnarounds, are the workhorse of popular music. You'll find them everywhere, especially in choruses. They are a set number of bars, usually 4 or 8, and the location of certain chords in this structure means that they work as a small unit which can be repeated as many times as you need. Although they appear limited on the outside, having some constraints like this can free you up to try out all of the chords in the key and see which one fits your song. Here's the initial formula for the 4-chord minor key loop. Start on 1, then play 2 more chords before ending on flat 7. Feel free to try any chord out in between. For example, you could try 1, 4, flat 6 and flat 7. Or maybe rearrange and see what 1, flat 6, 4, flat 7 sounds like. You can also repeat chords in the loop if you want. For example, moving back and forth from 1. If the 4-chord loop starts to feel a bit limiting, then you can open it up a bit by changing the final chord. 2 other choices are available, the minor 4 and the 5 chords. Feel free to experiment in the same way with the 2 blank spaces in between. You can take these components of the 4-chord loop, starting on 1 and ending on flat 7, 5 or 4, and break out into longer progressions if you want. It all depends on what serves the song you are writing. Here's an example of this in the key of C minor. So far, we've only been playing our minor key chord progressions openly and honestly, using just the diatonic chords. But now it's time to bluff. As I hinted at earlier, minor scales come in different flavours, and this means they can easily be manipulated in different ways to create different sounds and effects. The main bluff you'll see used extensively in minor key songs is to bring in a chord from outside of the key. That is a non-diatonic chord. This chord is the major 5 chord, also known as the dominant chord. For example, in the key of C minor, the 5 chord is usually G minor. In this case, we would play the G major chord instead. Another way to think of this chord is as a borrowed chord. We have temporarily borrowed it from another key to use in the minor key. If you're familiar with chords in the key of C major, then you will know that G major is the 5 dominant chord, which creates a strong cadence that pulls you back to the 1 tonic. When we bring this into the minor key, it will serve a similar purpose. It creates a much stronger sense of drama and tension than the minor 5, and when you resolve to the minor 1 tonic chord, it has a greater sense of resolution. The reason for this is the notes, or one particular note, in the chord. I've mentioned G minor and G major, so let's look at the notes in each chord. G minor is constructed with the notes G, B flat and D, whilst G major contains the notes G, B and D. Moving that one note up half a step brings it right next door to the root note of the scale, which is C. This is called the leading tone in the C major scale, and is the reason why this major 5 chord has a much stronger pull to the tonic 1 chord. To experience this, have a listen to the chord at work when simply moving from 1 to major 5. It also transforms the 4-chord loop formula we used earlier. Give it a go by ending with the major 5 and feel the strength it brings to continue the loop. For example, here's a popular idea which is also known as the Andalusian cadence. Major 5 is often used with just the flat 6 and 1 for a popular and powerful sound. For example, even though we've been using the major 5 chord, it doesn't mean you have to ignore the minor 5. It can actually be a really powerful idea to use both versions of the 5 chord to provide contrast and drama. For example, here's the previous 4-chord loop, but with both 5-chord flavours. Listen to the added interest that this brings. So far I haven't used the diminished 2 chord, but you are free to give it a go in the 4-chord loop if you want. Whilst diminished chords are extremely rare in major keys, they do crop up a little more in minor keys. The most likely way you'll see them played is in a 2-5-1 progression. 2-5-1s feature in major keys and are a staple of jazz music. In minor keys it involves the diminished 2 chord and that borrowed major 5 to create a dramatic flourish of a progression. Here's an example in the key of C minor. Minor key progressions can be used to create whole songs, But before you do that, you need to fully understand where the chords come from and what their functions are. I've created a simple system that explains all of this, and you can learn it with the video on screen. Watch that now to master the dark arts of minor keys.
Oh, I can learn it. I just learned a few things just in that video. I love the flat 7/5.
Absolutely.
Definitely gonna play around with that.
Yep. And one of those 4-chord loops that he was looking at in the minor key was basically if you looked at it from the major side, it's the 6-1-4-5. So it is that wagon wheel progression, and one you've heard in a million songs also. So like you recognize it when you hear it, but you can call it, one thing in a minor key, and you can call it another thing if you're looking at it as a major key starting on the 6-1-4-5.
It's funny how the resolution, depending on the chord, as all through all these examples, some that I would have not thought to be resolving feeling became almost like resolving feeling. Not they didn't resolve like the tonic, but the 5 really does feel pleasant to like finish on.
Oh yeah, and it does want to pull to the 1, and that's where if you're starting on the 1, that 5 is the natural place to finish, so that it really is the strongest place to pull you back home.
When he hits on that major 5, I'm like, ooh, now this is a little, not necessarily scary. It's a feeling of tension.
To me, the going from the minor 5 to the major 5 is like a brightening. It's kind of like it was a rainy day, but then there's that ray of sunshine like poking through all of a sudden.
We're gonna see a rainbow next.
Yeah. Well, in this case, he was doing the G minor, right? And just the way that the 3 coming up from the minor to the major just gives you that positivity, that uplifting kind of a thing going on.
Yeah, that 1, 2, 5 at the end there. I was like, oh, the 2 is just as cool as the 7.
Oh yeah, and that's where that the diminished 2 in the minor key, because if the minor 1 is the 6 in the major key, then that minor 2 that's diminished is the diminished 2 is the major 7, which would also be the diminished.
Yes, and he did get into that parallel progression approach, which when you said your modem was acting funny, I'm like, damn, man. Anytime we talk about parallel progressions,
it tries to like parallel universe me out of there. Oh no,
it's the Mandela effect in your router.
Yeah. It's happening. It's happening.
Well, I'm glad that you caught that, because that last week that really triggered some ideas, and this really accents them on what I was thinking. I'm about to hit the minor chords in a whole new way.
And when we get to the minor scales, there's also, you got your natural minor, but then there's also the harmonic minor and the melodic minor. We're going to have to deal with those as well.
Yes, melodic next week. Melodic will be a little bit of a theme.
Right. Sounds good.
So that was at Write a Song. Great channel for songwriting tips. When we do songwriting nights, it's where I find half my shit.
That's right. Got to do it.
And, if we really want to get nuts with our chord progressions or the sounds that we use to play notes, this is where experimental music really comes in.
Yep. And when I was mentioning early Pink Floyd, I'd mentioned there was a music teacher I had at one point, and they didn't like Pink Floyd. And that hurt me because I was such a fan of Pink Floyd. And I'm like, no, how could you not like Pink Floyd? So I brought in Adam Hart Mother, the CD, and gave it to her and asked her, just give it a chance. The first song is like 23 minutes long. So just, headphones, give it a good chance and just listen to the whole thing, because we were talking about polyphony, using multiple melody lines at the same time, not together, but they're just totally separate ideas happening at the same time. And in that song, there's a couple of spots where there are perfect examples of polyphony. So when I played it for her, when I came in the next class session the next week, the song was playing as we walked in, instead of like the usual classical music that was playing. And the class is like, oh, what is that? I'm like, that's Pink Floyd. And they're like, yeah, right. I'm like,
Student has become the teacher.
I was just opening her eyes to something that she hadn't seen before with them, because she, had only heard certain songs and didn't like what she had heard and just dismissed it out of hand, but hadn't heard the experimental stuff from the early days.
Yeah, and for music teachers and appreciators like that, that's where they should go for their Pink Floyd. The more commercial stuff and radio stuff later isn't a full example of how experimental they really were.
Yeah, and I mean, not everybody knows this, but this poster behind me here, these are Pink Floyd albums.
Yeah.
And the oldest is Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and Saucer Full of Secrets, two of the oldest albums from Pink Floyd, and they have a lot of that more. Some of it is more experimental sound, but some of it is also just them kind of finding their sound as well.
So he doesn't just play a Pink Floyd fan on TV; he actually is one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Well, they are one. I think one of the most influential overall across all the musicians out there. They probably had more influence than any other band I can think of at this point.
I just really love the soaring guitar style, the selective use of notes, the use of long pauses and long notes, like all that kind of thing really adds to the gravity to me of the music.
Yeah. One other band, the Beatles.
Oh,
Between Pink Floyd and the Beatles, one of them is king of influence for the majority of musicians.
I think a lot of people would say the Beatles, but that's the thing is it is a kind of a personal taste thing.
Yeah. I think commercially overall, the Beatles might have an edge, but the musicians, especially guitarists, bassists, synth guys like me, you can't ignore like the Pink Floyd effect.
Yeah, good stuff.
So we got another Freshie channel here at Notes from the Archives. Considering like the discussion he's bringing here, I can't wait to go through and see if he's got more of these thinkers when it comes to music philosophy. Because I've asked this question about like experimental music. Is it a necessary evil? Is it even possible? Especially nowadays. I don't know how you could define experimental music in 2025 the same way that we used to call the synthesizers doing weird shit without time, and that was our experimental music when we were kids. Now it's so much beyond that.
Mhm. And in some cases, people are doing, instead of doing music in 4/4 time or in 6/8 time, they're doing music in 17/14 time, and you're like, why?
Yeah. Well, that's where I've seen some of the experimenting. It's like, oh, we're just going to change the time signature, which
to something that makes sense. Hopefully, that's the important thing.
You mean I got to count 18 beats in my head?
Yeah. And then only play 17 of them. That's the trick.
Okay, I could have done it if it was all 18, but I don't think I can do 17.
I will say one of the bands that we work with, one of the things they like to do in one of the songs is he'll go, okay, give it to me, 9 times. And then da, 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 da. And like everybody in the band, he'll be like, oh, gotcha. He'll pull the James Brown on people because he will get somebody when he's doing 9 times or 7 times or 11 times. You're gonna get one of the horn players, maybe.
It's like playing that game, red light, green light.
Yep. You're out. Mm-hmm.
I want to see who's the last orchestral musician sitting.
It's a violin player, the first violin.
Of course. So let's see the argument for experimental music. This is the case for it. Bless his heart, somebody has to put this fight in.
I'm in favor.
Hi. At what point does a sound become music? Where does the boundary of music lie? Does a piano need to have its keys pressed to make music, or can the sound of it burning be considered a song? Does a human even need to be the one to make it? Can the sound of a mere cicada singing in the forest be considered a song? This is the case for experimental music. Calling experimental music a genre can be misleading. Rather, it's more appropriate to call it an approach. The New Grove Dictionary of American Music defined it as a tradition of 20th century musical practice, the fundamental characteristic of which is a continuing search for radically new modes of composition, music making, and musical understanding. Its definition may not be as concrete as other approaches or genres of music, but the NGA does outline experimental music's most important aspects. that it is constantly experimenting and finding new ways to create music, be it through composition, instruments, ideology, action, or environment. Essentially, if there's an aspect of the music making process which can be messed with, rest assured it will be messed with. As the NGA says, this is in contrast to conventional contemporary music, which may not be as bold and eccentric as its experimental counterparts. Experimental music can manifest itself in any genre you can think of, as musicians of all stripes and backgrounds has always had the urge to experiment in some form or another. Really though, just like contemporary art, modern forms of experimental music can trace its roots to art movements from the early 20th century. In a ravaged post-World War I Europe, artists across the continent were pushing the boundaries of what we call art and beauty. Italy's futurists created art which looked towards an ideal future, one filled with speed, dynamism, violence, and rapid technological advancements. And their music reflected it. Futurist composer Luigi Russolo wrote the seminal Futurist music manifesto, The Art of Noises, which argued that because the human ear has been accustomed to the sounds of industry and the hustle and bustle of the city, music too should reflect the energy of everyday life. To create his visions, he crafted instruments called intonarumori, which created sounds resembling industry machinery and the general noise pollution of a city, precursors to the various industrial and noise acts later into the century. Dada, the art movement which questioned the very meaning of art and stripped it bare of its pomp and embracing nonsense, irrationality, and chance, too experimented with music. The likes of Eric Satie and Igor Stravinsky took inspiration from Dada's aesthetics and incorporated its radical playfulness into their compositions, sometimes even writing music for Dada conventions. And so too did Dada poet Hugo Ball, creating sound poems made out of gibberish to highlight the similarities of intelligible sounds and nonsense. But once World War II came crashing into Europe and left yet another horrific scar onto the continent, many pre-World War II art movements had emigrated to North America by then, and it was game-changing. Particularly in New York, where an entire generation of artists took influence from many pre-World War II movements and channeled it in their works. This New York school of art included paintings, poetry, dance, and of course, music. This group included heavy hitters like John Cage, Christian Wolff, Earl Brown, and Morton Feldman. Taking influence from Dada's childlike improvisation, the futurists' embrace of noise, and the surrealists' love for the abstract, they transformed the way future composers approached music. But as the century went on and America's rock and roll started gaining more and more influence on the global zeitgeist, the kids would walk away from the European-centric ideas of the New York school and embrace something completely new. Those kids will come up later. Through the 60s, it was the jazz cats which defined experimental music. The likes of Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor, and John Coltrane, who mixed jazz's improvisation with the atonality and noise of the New York school. Free jazz would eventually become free improvisation, and influence an entire generation of experimenters. I wonder who has a video all about free jazz and its influence. Oh right, me. But throughout the 60s, there too was the Fluxus movement, which saw composers like Ben Patterson and Yoko Ono craft pieces resembling simple instructions which anyone of any skill could do. And the resulting pieces always teetered the boundaries of inane noise and music. Musicians like power electronic pioneers Whitehouse would further these Fluxus ideas into their own twisted compositions. And come the 70s, it was the youths, with punk rock which defined the era's experimental scene. This was unlike its predecessors. In came gangs of punks who rejected European composing influences and gravitated to the likes of Chuck Berry and the plethora of noisy Merseyside beat bands. Mixed with America's imperialist wars, the UK failing its own people, and the general discontent and malaise of the youth, you have the perfect recipe for a bunch of punks making really loud, abrasive, and anti-establishment music. Although tame by today's standards, the likes of Wire, Joy Division, and Patti Smith made a lot of noise. This eventually made way to the highly influential No Wave. No Wave wasn't very popular during its heyday, but as the decade goes on, its influence cannot be understated. Fusing the sounds of punk rock, free jazz, disco, and noise, it was unlike anything which existed before it. It had the simplicity of Dada, the noise of the futurist, the rhythms of disco and funk, and the general fuck you attitude of punk rock. No Wave would go on to produce the likes of Swans and Sonic Youth, who in turn would influence generations of noise rockers into the 90s till today. And let's not forget the IDM revolution of the 90s, which fused early 20th century experimentation with the neo sounds of electronica which burgeoned in the 80s. As the new millennium came in with the internet taking over our lives, there has been so much experimental music. This brief history is barely scratching the surface of how experimental music evolved through the 20th century, only focusing on America and Europe. There are still numerous amounts of artists and movements across the world who are pushing the boundaries. If there's one takeaway from the history lesson, it's that experimental music cannot be pigeonholed into a single genre. This is not a genre, but an approach. Nay, a mindset. When conventional approaches to music making is insufficient in expressing yourself and ideas, we turn to experimentation. How do we show pure primal emotion in music? Yoko Ono posits we should shout and scream our hearts out. How do we depict the chaos and filth of the world? Throbbing Gristle in the No Waivers suggests we peel music back to its absolute limit and create noise. How do we show the deconstruction of music? Anea Lockwood says to burn an upright piano, and in the process, it deepens our understanding and perception of what music is. Because what is music if not a bunch of waves vibrating gas, liquids, and solids? The fundamental difference between the sound of a guitar strumming and a police siren is not too far apart. There's a reason why dictionaries attempting to narrow down the description of music is very abstract and generally falls flat. Take for example the Cambridge Dictionary's attempt, describing it as a pattern of sounds made by musical instruments, voices, or computers, or a combination of these, intended to give pleasure to people listening to it. This forgets albums like Broken Hearted Dragonflies, a record by producer Tucker Martin, an album which is solely comprised of sounds from insects in a forest where he presents the sounds they create as something truly alien. Also, what is pleasurable? Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and pleasure is in the ears of the listener in the case of music. The abstract electronics of Mika Vainio is pleasurable to me, but may not be to many others. The definition of music is impossible to pin down, and it's best that it never is, because it would make the art form very boring. It's thanks to the works of the New York School, noise musicians, no waivers, electronic pioneers, and a whole host of musicians through history who have challenged what music is why the 90s till today have become accepting of abrasive and avant-garde sounds. The influence of experimental music is everywhere, from the mainstream to the indie and underground. Death Grips and JPEG Mafia's blends of noisy, off-the-wall samples is part of a long history of experimenters. Nine Inch Nails got mainstream attention while sticking to their industrial roots, and so too did Nirvana, refusing to back away from their noise rock origins. The IDM of many on the Warp label until today, with the likes of Nicholas Jarre, traces its DNA to the Italian futurist Luigi Russo's radical compositions. The history of experimental music too has made us accepting of the more comedic side of music, helping a new generation of artists not take it too seriously and have some fun. Remember, although modern experimental music sees its roots start from the trauma of World War I, art is here to express our emotions. It may be of trauma, depression, and anger, or sometimes just plain whimsy. Dadaist compositions tended to have fun with their childlike approach to art, and in turn helped liberate many would-be experimenters in the mid to late 20th century like Captain Beefheart. Perhaps is why Uno Miles isn't all too insane for us modern listeners. Although he isn't intentionally being experimental, you can't help but see the traces of Hugo Ball's sound poems and Dada in the way he raps. And when John Oswald angered record labels with his cheeky Plunderphonics records, it laid the groundwork for the numerous parody music mashups which has littered the internet and gave Neil Cicierega a career. Experimental music comes in all forms, from ripping up pieces of paper, creating walls of noise with your guitar, putting nuts and bolts in your piano, sampling pre-existing music and twisting it to your vision, or just saying gibberish. It may not be crowd-pleasing, but it was never meant to do so. This approach to music making was created to liberate, to allow artists to question everything about music. What's the proper way to play piano? Why is a police siren not considered music when a trumpet making a similar sound is? Why does a song need legible lyrics when it's just noise? What's the use of rules in music? So, burn your pianos, play some harsh noise, shout some gibberish, and mess around on the cheap Casio keyboard. Because even if you aren't intentionally being experimental, there's nothing more fun than screwing around and making noise. And that's that. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed the video, do leave a like and subscribe, or don't, I can't force you. If you want to support the channel, I have a Ko-fi page where you can donate, and I have a second channel where I upload music mixes, so if you want to hear what I've been listening to, you can subscribe to it. I also have an Instagram, so if you want to keep up with whatever I'm doing, you can follow me there. So yeah, I'll see you all around.
I did like and I did subscribe.
Yes, indeed. Prepared pianos, yeah. Burning
uh,
pianos.
well, he really covered the history of it really well. Like
Hmm.
those pioneers, he got Stravinsky in there, love
Hmm.
it,
Yep, yep.
and he actually opened my eyes to some of this modern experimental that I didn't actually consider experimental. I just
Hmm.
thought of it as a genre per se, but I'm realizing, some of that Euro and synthesizer experiments that DJs, a
Hmm.
lot of them are starting to do,
Right.
are kind of going in the same kind of vein as the early, what do you call it? The futurist
Sure. Futurist
approach.
movements. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was new wave, there was no wave, there was a few
Well,
different
fusion.
specific. Hmm.
Fusion was kind of a common theme anytime that, like, the jazz fusion in the middle of all of that was a big shift.
Hmm. Yeah. And, to me, there's also, some of the examples that we were seeing in the background. You see people who are, definitively making music and attempting to make music and just push towards noise. And there's others who just look like they're literally just making noise and trying to be non-musical. They're like trying too hard almost to make it a musical, to make it
I
not
I
musical.
think I think the ones that are trying to find something musical in noise are the
Yeah,
ones that interest me the most.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like the sound of this scale saw feels like a synthesizer, and this
Mhm.
hammer feels like a drum.
Yeah, and even the prepared piano where it's got all the, metal stuff in there, like they're still playing actual notes on the piano and it just you get something unexpected. Like you're hitting a C and you're
I
expecting to
know.
hear
I
a C,
was
but you get a C and some other stuff.
I was a little conflicted when they started with burning a piano. I'm like, yes, that
Yeah.
probably is going to make a sound that's going
Hmm.
to be
Oh yeah.
interesting, but I hate to see a musical instrument destroyed. When
Yeah.
I see like Pete
Especially a piano
Townsend
like that.
smashing guitars in the Who, or
Hmm.
I'm like, give it to a kid.
Yeah. And I mean a piano, the actual soundboard in a piano, I mean, where the strings are actually connected, I mean, that's a big solid piece of metal. I mean, the
See,
grand piano, that's huge.
I was the guy that threw nuts and bolts on my piano strings because you can do
Because then you
some
hear them
crazy
rattling. Yeah.
shit, but
Yeah.
I don't want to destroy
Mhm. I did
it.
that a couple times. I actually, we had one string on. We've talked before about the grand piano, baby grand piano that we had that I was playing when I was a kid, and one string towards the low end would go out of tune, and so I had the tuning hammer to dial it back in. But I would sometimes like I left it on the strings accidentally one time and started playing, and like the first note was like, and it was like that metal,
Magic.
yeah, but no, it was like an aggressively wah, like what the hell was that kind of sound? And then it's like so I experimented on myself and didn't even know it. Like I had left something on the strings by accident and didn't notice till I went to go play.
See, Angie expected that from you.
Ah, see, it happens. But yeah, that was a good test. Like you start playing and you hear you're trying to play that one note and it's like and then there's three strings. Like the third one, you're like, ooh, like that's not right. You got to get that other one, get them all
Yeah,
knocked in.
I had one problem key on my baby grand. It was the low A
Mhm.
because I used to use it so much. And like, talk about the worst key of all 88 that I can't hit because it played three strings that are all over the place.
Mhm. Yep, and like how close, if you kept going down, how far would you have to go to get from three strings to two strings? Like, were they getting fat yet at that point, or is it?
Yeah, it was one of the low
Yeah,
end, like
yeah.
not the very lowest A, but the
Mhm.
one right after, which I used to double up my bass. So, I'm always hitting it with my pinky.
Yep. And for us, I think it was also down that way. It was definitely a left hand, lower note, but it was one of the ones that was three strings, and I think one of the strings had already broken because it had two of them were going out, so one had already broken and we hadn't replaced it yet. And so I was tuning in, the one that was in the middle, I guess. So like the one was normal and the other one I would have to just crank it in and then I could play fine. And then, a day or two would go by and I would just, dial it back. It's like tuning a guitar, but normally you don't have to do that with a piano. So that was
No.
one of those things where I think it was just because they had gone to the oversized tuning pegs already and it had just been, it was that old. The piano had really been around for a while. So
Yeah, if I have a problem note like that, that's where I'm making horror music.
Yeah.
It's supposed to sound like that.
Sure, yeah. The detuned piano, or you do the Western saloon sound, because that was
Yeah,
also
well,
like the old-timey sound. Yeah, yeah.
then I need the whole piano to sound like that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, at notes from the archives, awesome. Look back on the history of experimental, from classical to jazz to whatever we're calling it these days.
Exactly.
And now we're going to get some advice from a doctor, and it's for you.
Dr. Bass, let's see.
Your doctor wants you to play this bass.
Yes, indeed.
And this channel, back when we did our bass night part deux,
Yep.
was one of the spotlights at Bass the World official. And I figured when you look at this, you're going to know why it's ergonomical.
Yep. I basically see where it's resting on the leg there. I can see that resting on the other leg, it would also be comfortable. You see that it's a fanned fret bass, as far as if you see the nut at the at the far end there, it's diagonal rather than it being perpendicular to the neck. It's splayed out, and at the other end, same thing happens. The frets get more as you come down.
Well,
It looks like
your
pussy.
observation on the weight, because it's a headless, you're not having to exert as much.
Yep. And that also comes down to where the balance point is. Like, some guitars are headstock heavy, where they'll feel like the head, like if you just let go of it, it would just start diving to the floor. Where with no headstock, it would not be heavy like that. It would probably be headstock light. But they also probably just have it well balanced where they mount the strap.
Oh, and if you were wearing glasses, you'd be on his shirt.
There you go. They're in the other room. I'll go get them.
Well, while you do, we're going to see why this one gets the prescription.
Definitely.
This is a crazy bass. It's super lightweight, extremely comfortable to play, and can get you everything from sweet, calm harmonies up to the heaviest of heavy bass tones. Let's check it out. Hi you! Yes, you come a bit closer, let's get cozy. Welcome to Bass the World. My name is Gregor Fries, and playing this rather unique design from Sweden is Frank It today. I've also invited a chiropractor to join us for this episode. This bass has some interesting ergonomic properties that we will discover together later on in the video. So if you have back issues, arthritis or anything like that, this video is especially interesting for you. But also everyone else, you don't need to wait until you get these issues to take care of yourself. But first, Frank. First things first, this bass weighs only 2.9 kilos, that's 6.4 freedom kilos for American viewers. That's great news for your back or your general posture, but again, let's discuss this later with Dr. Randall Kurtz. Lightweight basses have an issue. What you gain in comfort usually comes with a certain lack of low end. But as you've just heard, this bass doesn't suffer from this at all, which is mainly due to a modern sophisticated pickup system. The Strandberg Bodenbass standard comes with Fishman Fluence pickups, which are next level in every sense. These are two humbuckers with a pickup voicing switch to shape them in different directions. The first position gives you passive pickups with a classic fat and round sound. Position 2 is active and provides a full frequency range and full dynamics. Number 3 is active with a mid contour. Let's try them all out. In addition, you can also pull the volume control out, which is this one here. You get these three sounds again, this time not as humbuckers but as single coils. For full disclosure, the volume difference is a bit higher than what you've just heard. I brought them a bit closer together in post-production. The preamp is a 2-band EQ with controls for treble and bass, and the first one next to the volume is the pickup balance. And now let's move on to the woods. The body is made from American basswood and it has a flamed maple veneer on top, so it looks all pretty. The matte charcoal finish looks awesome, but you can get the Boden bass also in natural if that's more your thing. The neck is roasted quarter-sawn maple, reinforced with carbon fiber and walnut. The fretboard is roasted maple too, and it comes with 24 stainless steel frets plus 0 fret and a flat 20-inch fretboard radius. The best thing about these necks is Strandberg's so-called Endure neck profile, which helps you to play with a better left-hand position, but again, more about this later with the dog. This bass comes with a very nice kickback and the best set of tools I've seen in a while, even with earplugs so your partner doesn't leave you during the honeymoon phase with this beauty. Now I want to play you a little thing we've recorded with Frank, arguably one of the best things we've ever recorded on this channel. A very unique technique he uses live as grand finale for his slap bass solos. Enjoy. Damn, Frank, don't break the bass. I think I need something to calm me down again. Frank, something calm, please? So now let's get to the final part. Let's catch our appointment with the bass doctor. Hi Randall, so who are you and what's your profession?
I am Dr. Randall Kurtz. I'm a chiropractor, acupuncturist, bassist, and I specialize in the prevention and treatment of injuries to musicians, a topic on which I write books, lecture, and I also serve as a consultant and in development on ergonomic products for the music industry.
Welcome. So what are the typical issues the bassists you're treating are struggling with?
One of the main things that I see in bassists especially is unnecessary bending of the wrist. This is usually to navigate an instrument in a way that is really unsuccessful a lot of the time, simply because when a player bends their wrist too much, whether it's the right or the left, in order to play, they find a comfortable position, and that can lead to repetitive strain type injuries, pinched nerves, carpal tunnel, or just pain in the musculature, which affects everything on up the chain: elbow, shoulder, neck, eventually the back, etc. And that's on both sides.
Okay, and why are these basses so interesting from your point of view? What makes them different?
So what I really like about this Strandberg instrument is several things. It was developed with an ergonomic quality in mind for the musician to avoid things like what we just talked about, bending of the wrists, etc. Whether it's the right arm, first of all, it's incredibly light. As you can see, I am really putting no effort into moving this instrument around, but also the right arm, I'm able to follow this sort of fadeaway here, which allows me to be able to play in such a way that I'm not bending the wrist on the top of the instrument. The cutouts here enable one to be able to play in a sitting position comfortably. Many times with instruments, the best way to play is to put the instrument on this leg and have some kind of a stool, classical footstool or something, to raise the arm to put you in a good position for both wrists. In this case, you don't need to do that. You can use this cutout. You can sit there and practice scales or do anything you want, whether it's serious practice or whether you're watching television. Same thing here. You can put it on this leg. You can also put it on this leg if you wish, but you don't have to. It's not necessary because of the availability of these cutouts. When I am playing this instrument, the biggest feature about this is the Endure neck, which is a Strandberg proprietary neck in which the back is sculpted in such a way that there's almost like a ledge here. If you look here, you'll see that it kind of goes like this and down the length of the entire neck. That enables one to be able to play in such a way that their thumb is going to follow the neck and it is going to become entrained into the brain and then to the fingers and to the body in such a way that it guides your hand to the best position. In other words, your thumb doesn't have to come up over the neck or doesn't have to go way down like that. Again, bending the wrist like we talked about earlier. It follows this pre-designed pattern, which allows one to be able to easily navigate the length of the neck and have their hand follow and be in the most advantageous position at all times.
Thanks for joining me in this video and thanks for your insight into this topic.
Thank you, Bass the World and Strandberg, for having me today. It was a great pleasure to be here, and I wish you all the best always.
I hope this was useful to you. If you want to learn more about this bass, maybe even buy one, or get in touch with Dr. Randall Kurtz, you can find links to everything in the video description. That's it from me. Thanks for watching and bye-bye. Bass the World.
Nice.
Man, he's got that professor voice.
Absolutely.
I feel like I just took a college course.
that ledge he's talking about on the back of the neck. Most necks have that rounded profile on the back, where it's just the smooth round profile on the back.
Well, didn't you recognize it's a Strata?
Strandberg, yeah.
Yeah, you picked up on that, like.
Like you said, those cutouts, that's unique. Like when you see that somewhere, those cutouts and the headless, that really jumped out at me. I'm not sure if they're all fan fret like that, where the frets kind of splay out instead of all being straight the whole way. That's one thing, where the different scale length on each of the strings, that way when they're this way, the fattest string is the longest and the skinniest string is the shortest. And as you're playing up the neck, when you're going to the thinner strings, the frets are a little bit closer together, so they're easier to get to at that point. But it's one of those things that also has 24 frets. It's a 5-string bass with 24 frets, which is the same as the ESP bass I use over one of the studios.
Isn't 24, 25 as far as you can go?
24 is, well, you could go further. I've seen 26, but like 24 is a full 2 octaves. So like the open string on the lowest string is a low B. So it's a low B there, and at the very middle is the 12th fret, and that's also a B. And then way up, the highest fret you can get to is also a B. So
you gotta want to squeal up there.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is I'm usually not, especially not the fat strings. I'm usually not playing the fat strings up that high. I'm usually using the fatter strings down at the low end, and then as I'm moving up to the highest notes that you can get to, you're on the skinniest strings and all the way up into the body.
Yeah. Frank was definitely giving it some different variety.
One technique I don't use a lot is the punching of the bass, because it just feels mean, you know? I mean, I get it, and I have used it as like at the very end of a song, like hit that one last note, and you just kind of thump with the hand, like, and you can drive that note a little bit further without there being another active, ping of the note. You just kind of build it back in from underneath.
As long as you don't smash your bass afterwards, or do Nirvana-ish and throw it 9 feet in the air.
Or Jocko and throw it at the drummer. Not a good
okay,
idea.
the band is over if the bassist throws his bass at me.
Well, Kenward Denard caught it, so it's okay. Good stuff.
I bet you he's probably dealt with it at Bass the World Official. I bet you he's had a bass thrown or dodged it.
And again, that one was so light. I think, what did he say, 6 pounds, 6.4 pounds? I mean,
I know he was
so
he was holding it like it was just
and that's the thing, is, I mean, that's the way I hand my 5-string around, and my 5-string is way heavier than that. But I just grab it by the upper horn and just here.
He's probably a giant just like you.
Could be. Oh, there we go.
Oh yes, for our last one, a toy that I would love to get my hands on.
The drop.
When I saw it, I had to go to the website, and when I saw the different controllers that they're offering, these are not your typical MIDI surface controllers. It's kind of like you're bringing a sequencer in physically. All of these are programmable buttons. They have a whole suite of different controllers. The one we're going to look at, the drop, that's the one making all the noise because it's got the sliders. But this whole solution is in my wish list.
I can see why. And it did look like there were multiple modules, right? Like as far as you would connect together or use different modules for different things.
Yeah, they've got this Oxy, and the drop is. These look more like something I could utilize for step sequencing and also for video editing. I could see utilizing programmable buttons here to speed up the whole video editing workflow. But this drop is the first one in my MIDI controllers. If it's not that Presonus that I've been eyeing,
right,
this is the other one that offers feature for feature everything, plus a couple of unique ones that the Presonus doesn't have.
Yeah. Now the Presonus, we just went and hooked the Studio Live 32 back up over at the studio out in Pennsylvania there. We had taken the board out to go to one of the gigs out at the baseball stadium, and then we brought it back over and hooked it back up in the studio, got everything back to the snake and all that, got everything all back in nice. But now it's a matter of getting the drums all wired back up next time around. So we'll do that next week.
Yeah.
We figured we'd get the board in and get a little jam session going. Next week, we'll get the drums back.
Now, I found this one in our feed of subscribed channels, the Midlife Synthesis.
Nice.
Yeah, we looked at this site a couple months back for one of the gear reviews, and great reviews on gear, covers everything that it does. And that's at Midlife Synthesis over on YouTube. This is the drop, the OXI, I think that's the company, OXIinstruments.com. This is their new surface controller that you can basically do all the mixing you have to do with your mouse on a physical surface.
And what connections do you see in the top there? Does that look like all 1/8 inch?
On the back, I
USB-C?
see either 1/8 inch or... Let me see if they have the...
Yeah, it looks too small to be any XLRs at all, I think. Not that it would need them, just saying. Yeah, there's usually like a back view. That's all right. I'm sure it'll go over it in the video too.
Yeah, they don't actually have it on their website yet. I think it's that new. Like, I just started seeing it pop up. I do see 1/4 inch here, or those are 1/8 inch.
Probably 1/8. It looks like it's quite small, so it's probably 1/8 inch would be my guess.
I will find the back of that as we watch, or they might actually show it. I didn't even think.
I'm sure they will. That's just me getting ahead of us.
Damn it, I already want one.
Yeah.
That's me getting ahead of us.
Make it 2. Get me 2, Utah. Give me 2.
Squared.
This video is rated G for gas.
This is Newsight's drop, and at the risk of sounding overly enthusiastic, it is by far the most exciting MIDI parameter controller I've reviewed since I started this YouTube channel. It is an insanely customizable, highly playable, and ultimately satisfying tool for music making, live playing, and improvisation that offers a level of precise control and room for creativity that I can only compare to the Octatrack, but without the heavy learning curve or weird electron lingo. In this video, I want to show you what it is, what it does, and why I haven't been able to put it down since it got here. For full disclosure, Newsight sent me Drop at no cost for review, but they're not sponsoring this video and have no oversight into what I say or don't say here. This video does have a sponsor, the good folks at Analog Cases, but more on them a bit later. If you're already subscribed, huge welcome back, my friend. If this is your first time here,
Hi, welcome to the Midlife Synthesis. Let's get started.
Okay, so right out the gate, the amount of available controls here is massive. The Drop features 32 rotary knobs that double as push encoders, 8 buttons and 8 faders. However, you actually have double that amount since the Drop works with 2 layers, A and B, which operate simultaneously. These controls can have up to 8 MIDI targets each. So for example, you could control up to 8 different synths filter cutoffs by turning just one knob. That's all well and good, but what really sets the Drop apart isn't the sheer amount of available control. It's the clever way in which you can manage and automate several of those controls at once for insane musical outcomes. But I'll explain them in full detail when we get to that. The Drop comes in a sturdy metal casing with black and gold highlights. It feels absolutely premium, and I for one really dig the aesthetics. On the back, the Drop has a dedicated power input, 2 USB ports, one of which can be used to power the unit from a laptop or power brick, microSD, CV in and out, 4 TRS MIDI ins, and 4 TRS MIDI outs. A really smart feature here is that the MIDI outputs can be set to be either TRS Type A or TRS Type B, which, if you suffer the headache of incompatible TRS types, it is kind of a lifesaver. On the left side of the front panel, you get this handy-dandy knob that controls the speed of the jump transitions, which I'll demo in just a second. Right next to that knob are the control buttons for play, stop, tap tempo, as well as jump, drop, and snapshot edit menus. The button grid under that serves for both saving and launching snapshots, as well as inputting notes, which can be set to a scale or played chromatically. When set to DAW control, it can also launch clips in Ableton, for example. Finally, at the very bottom left, you have the fully colored main screen. The screen and the buttons surrounding it serve multiple purposes, such as letting you know where you are in the loop, when the next drop or jump is coming in, and also being your main interface to navigate all the many options that Drop has to offer. The faders and knobs have no wobble whatsoever, and the rubber gives them a nice grip and feel to them. The entire unit feels like it was made to deal with heavy abuse in live situations, and it's a good thing too, because it's really easy to get carried away when you're jamming on it. With so many physical controls here, a very understandable issue would be that you can't control all of this with just 2 hands and 10 fingers. And that's where the genius of the snapshot comes in. The concept of the snapshot itself is not a new idea. It's pretty much the same thing as a scene on an Octatrack or a parameter snapshot on Native Instruments machine, if I'm not mistaken. A snapshot will record the state of every parameter on the Drop, like every fader and knob position, as well as the button on and off states. And the cool thing is you get 20 banks of 20 snapshots, and you can morph between them, either automatically with a jump or a drop, or manually, much like the Octatrack. These can be used to act as something as simple as a safety net, where you allow yourself to explore and experiment on a live set and have a quick way of returning to a safe state of your performance. Or it can be used to create amazing transitions, moments of tension and release, and as the name suggests, well-timed drops in your music. There are 2 ways of making these transitions, which are called jumps and drops. Jumps are triggered by selecting a snapshot, and the time it takes for the transition to take place is controlled with this knob I mentioned before. That means that the jump from one snapshot to another can either be immediate, or you can stretch it out for a considerable while. The drop is a jump or transition that can be pre-programmed and is immediate. A drop will always override a jump, and you can set it as a single drop or have it repeat to a desired length. This means, for example, that you can have it set up to return to that safe spot every 4 bars and go nuts tweaking parameters in the meantime, all the while knowing it will always return on your designated beat to the safety zone. You can also chain snapshots to be triggered in a specific order, so you can have everything going down, the filters cutting everything off, and then everything comes back up again. So effectively, you can plan out entire songs with transitioning parameters.
Hey, you there. Yes, you. Are you tired of playing your synths in your dusty old studio all the time? Well, worry no more and break free with Analog Cases. Analog Cases makes custom cases that are both comfortable and stylish. They have cases for everything from sensible analog polysynths to tiny overpriced groove boxes and beyond. Take your music wherever you go. With Analog Cases, we got you covered. Analog Cases does not recommend taking your synths into molten lava or into endoscopies.
Thank you so much, Analog Cases, for supporting this channel and helping me keep the lights on. Now, back to the video. I don't know about you, but one of the main reasons why I shy away from MIDI controllers in general is that initial setup usually feels like just a ton of work. Thankfully, the folks at Newsite must feel the same way, because the setup process here feels dizzyingly fast thanks to a few quality of life features. First is that it comes pre-packaged with a large amount of instrument MIDI CC libraries. You'll find most of the fan favorites in here, like the R2R Microfreak, pretty much all the Electron boxes, the Novation Peak, and so on and so forth. After adding an instrument, you then proceed to mapping, which in this case literally means twisting a knob or pressing a button, and you can just start looking for a destination within that CC bank of that instrument. To make this process even faster, you can move or copy a knob or fader onto another knob or fader and just change the target. For example, look at how fast I can assign fader volumes for all 8 tracks of my OPXY by just copying and pasting my settings. The drop also has MIDI learn, which means that even if your synth is not on this list, you can easily map out the controls if your synth knobs put out MIDI messages when you're turning them. The rotary knobs are highly customizable in how they behave, such as line from center, line from left, or stepped. Clicking these same rotary knobs can also be customized to toggle, reset to middle, reset to left or right, and so on. Even the sensitivity of the knobs can be adjusted to very fast, very precise, or something in between. Same goes for the faders. They give you the option of setting a maximum and minimum value, as well as stepped and smooth lines and multiple curves of behavior that you can choose from. Another great thing is that you can name everything directly on the drop without need to hook it up to a computer or additional software. And when you turn or push your controls, the screen here will let you know what you're doing. This is especially useful when you want to return to an old project and aren't really sure what control was doing what at the time. The drop also acts as a MIDI router, and you can select multiple inputs like an external MIDI keyboard or the Oxy1 or the Hapax as sequencers and route them to different synths using the same MIDI channels, thanks to the merge function. Merge makes your synths only listen to certain inputs and ignore the rest. Within that merge, you can also select what MIDI channels should be listened to, as well as which ones should be ignored from that same input. Well, you might be thinking, wow, that sounds pretty complicated. And yeah, it can get pretty complex pretty fast, but I feel it's important to note that with the level of complexity that the drop can handle, the UI could have easily been a convoluted mess with an insane learning curve and just be a real headache to operate. This is very much not the case with the drop, and I have to commend the team at Newsite for making this feel so approachable. The end result of all of this is one of the most rewarding ways to play with your synths that I've ever experienced so far. I have turned the simplest loops into dynamic and ever-changing set pieces that I can just tweak around for literally hours, all the while having just a great time. And I have to say, when playing your MIDI controller is more fun than playing on your PlayStation 5, you know you got a winner. I've been using the drop for a few weeks now, and though I technically have the hang of it, I still feel I'm only beginning to discover all the possibilities it offers with its flexible mapping and inspired transition mechanics. I really feel this is going to be a staple of live sets in the years to come, and I think anyone remotely interested in performing with synthesizers should really give this a shot. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.
Extremely useful.
Yeah, and like you said, easy to configure. I mean, that just looks extremely approachable is a good term. Yeah.
Well, and his point at the end there about like it could have been a convoluted mess. I have a couple of them in my room. MIDI controllers, especially when you get to this level, have been convoluted messes up till now. The programming approach that this takes and learning, like if it can learn quick and you can set up everything that you need to talk to on the other controllers, the Presonus mixing board you deal with, this is the kind of device that talks to everything else.
Yeah. And the built like a tank, that's also very important in my book too. I mean, it's got to feel solid, right? And when things get shrunk down, when they get shrunk down smaller and smaller, they're usually getting to feel kind of cheesy, but that looks solid.
The one thing I'm confused about is the input ports. Those 1/8 inch, the choice to go 1/8 inch. Man, those
I
are
think
the
of it,
flimsiest of the cables.
I think of it the same way as those, we talked about those Matrox Millennium cards way back when, with the big high density connectors, because they were trying to do, quad screens on computer setups, but on a very small card. So the card itself just had a very high density connector that came out to a Hydra cable to 4 other video connectors for you to hook up monitors to. Same idea here, where those TRS connectors could all just be small 1/8 inch, and then if you need to adapt out to something else,
but I hate my big issue with the little 1/8 inch is that the tips, and they're so easy to break. They're the most problematic. Like a good 1/4 inch plugged in and you're not constantly plugging and unplugging it all the time, lasts forever. An 1/8 inch, especially because they tend to be ones people plug in, unplug, and do it every day, they wear out fast.
Yeah. And if this was the kind of thing that you're taking out gigging and hooking up and unhooking every single time, absolutely, you would probably
Yeah.
end up with, like you're saying. But again, it does look like a solid tank piece. So I could also see it being totally fine with that. But again, I could see it just being one of those things where if you were to try to build the same device, but build it with the larger connectors in there so that you can do something quartered.
And for performance, like
Yeah,
performance ruggedness versus, I can see this in my studio for
that's what I was going to
sure.
say. Yeah, I would definitely put it in the studio, but I could also see the use case for using it out live. But
Oh yeah.
there would always be concerns. But minimizing the footprint and maximizing the usefulness of what you get, and I think this does the best job of any that I've
You
seen
know
in
who
a
I
long
would
time.
see using this in performance mode?
Yeah,
DJs.
yeah.
DJs tend to have that nice, like a laptop. Some of
Mhm.
them have two, and just a few little pieces of mobile gear, whether it's a little keyboard or, I mean, this has like sequencing possibilities, uh, triggering arpeggiators.
Mhm.
How you program these knobs and these sliders and what they do for a DJ
Mhm. And
might
that's the
not
thing
be
is
a volume slider.
for me, this is like overkill for a DJ because this has like way more functionality than they need. They would be able to use it just fine, but I think that it would also,
I'd rather have more options that I don't
yeah,
use
yeah,
than like, damn, I wish my gear could do it.
yeah. It's like having, if you have a keyboard and you wish it had, rhythms in it and it doesn't, or you wish it had more sounds and it only has 10 or whatever. It's you get the right tool for the job, and is this the right tool for every situation? No, but is this the right tool for your studio? And is it the right tool for certain people on stage? Absolutely.
Because of its the ability to customize it, the ability to store samples and scenes, automated mixing scenarios. Um, it's about $900, but for everything it actually does, I really thought I was just going to get me a nice automated control surface.
Hmm.
That's the dream. I want to bring up a mix and it's my mixer moves.
Hmm.
This adds a sampler, a sequencer, the ability to actually program every control to do whatever you want to a computer or to another MIDI device.
Hmm. Yeah. And a whole chain of MIDI devices from what it looked like there.
And like he said, when you really get complicated with it, it can get complicated, but
Hmm.
it shouldn't have to be super complicated to connect it to your computer and bring up your cakewalk or whatever and mix with it.
And even just looking at the scene where he had it, the backed away camera view where you could see all the different controllers and you see the step sequencer at the bottom. Like
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
you see it running and you know exactly what's happening. You can see just by glancing at it, like, okay, doom 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 doom, like all the different things that are getting triggered right there.
Yeah, and that layout is what I would see a DJ
Mhm.
bringing to the like event. And look, I got this controller for all the sequencing and arrangement. I got this controller for all the leveling and
See, I could see
a,
somebody
a
like
laptop.
I could see somebody like Rebele doing something like,
Oh,
that whole
absolutely.
setup just because, for him, it's like, okay, let me get this beat set up with this, and then boom, just set that off and then go to the other part of the song.
He uses that 505 and
Yeah.
its looping abilities, and it, this does everything that 505 does because it does have a built-in looper. It has a built-in sampler, the ability to load in all of that. This does what the 505 does with more knobs.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's the question is somebody like him, I could see him really pushing what this can do as far as using it
Yeah.
in a live environment. Because he has all that experience using the 505 and the other series of those controllers before that.
Oh, you hear that? Hook Rebele up, news it.
That's right. Yeah. He'd be the guy to send it to.
He's the one who convinced Joe to get his 505.
I remember.
Like,
I remember.
saw him in action with it, and he's like, damn, I could
Mhm.
use one of those.
Absolutely. Who couldn't? I mean, the one I have is the where is he? He's down there. The double, not the triple, not the quadruple. Like I think Joe had the 505 and the 3, and I think the one I had
Yeah.
is the 2.
Yeah, he went through a couple of generations during that period. He's like,
Mhm.
I thought this was going to be enough, but I need more channels.
Yep. More channels, more controls.
And that's why it's good to actually check out like these kinds of reviews
Mhm.
before you like spontaneously buy a solution
Mhm.
to make sure that it's really going to cover. And it's better to have the attitude like I'm not doing this right now, but if I could do it, maybe I should spend $100 more and get this version that has that additional feature.
Mhm. I'm also a big fan of going to a music store and putting my hands on it is another
Oh,
one.
yeah, yeah. The field test is the one that it's the most important to me, but
Mhm.
not being close to a music store anymore.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get my next keyboard without actually like field testing it.
Yeah. Now, keyboards are one where I would be less worried about it than stringed instruments. Stringed instruments, I feel there's more variability from one instrument to another, and the feel of this Les Paul will be different than the feel of that Les Paul, whereas much more so than the feel between this Casio and that Casio,
Yeah.
where they should have a certain amount that's just the same. When it comes to
I'm
that.
more likely because for my weighted
Mhm.
piano
Yeah.
feel, I'm more likely to stick with Roland because the
Mhm.
last two weighted keyboards that I've had, they served, and I did test them for 6 months before I
Mhm.
bought it.
Mhm.
Um, these other MIDI controllers, I mean, you can get 88 good weighted keys for so cheap now that if I did spend $300 for one of those just for the keyboard feel, I'm not super fussy with that. That to me, that's a secondary
It's a
keyboard.
controller, yeah. The idea is for the feel, so you can get that very soft sound by playing very gently, and you can get that very heavy sound by
Yeah,
really pushing
yeah.
down those keys.
If God forbid something fucks up on the F8,
Mhm.
then at least I got a backup keyboard
Mhm.
if that A starts doing that weird shit again.
You can drive it from another keyboard, yeah, like using a dumb terminal to drive the
Yeah.
main computer.
Yeah, I actually drive this
Mhm.
Phantom from the weighted keyboard
Yeah,
because I like those keys better.
sure. And the dynamics, that's again for me, that's the big difference with the weighted keys is the dynamics of how quietly you can play and how loudly you can play and how much of a difference there is in the staccato as well.
And there are times where, depending on the type of music that I'm working on, sometimes I
Mhm.
do want the springy, bouncy synth
Yep,
plastic keys
exactly.
because the weighted keys don't really help to do like Bon Jovi's Runaway.
Mhm.
You don't want to do that on weighted keys, it's too much work.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's another one that we were talking about that sus2 and the sus4. Like there's some of that going on in there too.
Oh,
Mhm.
we're gonna have a sus night. I'm
Yeah.
augmented, diminished. It'll be a combination of
Mhm.
adjustments.
There you go. I like it. The
Eh,
altered chords night.
yeah, yeah, the weird chords. Maybe we can incorporate some of that next week. Next week, being that Halloween's going to be the day after, we're going to look at some weird shit.
Mhm. I like
Weird,
it.
weird effects. What effects can you use to make shit sound spooky? What
Mhm.
sounds, patches, notes.
Mhm.